Hello, everyone. Welcome to Hope, Healing, and Mercy. Today, I have with me a very special guest, a friend, a beautiful, wonderful holy priest, a priest of the Marians of the Immaculate Conception. He serves as vicar provincial, probably more well known as vocations director for the Marians. He resides in Steubenville, Ohio. But what's fascinating to me is that for a year or 2 years here, he has worked and printed a book on St. Joseph. And in it, he talks about now is the time for St. Joseph. And as many of you know, the Holy Father declared the beginning of the year of St. Joseph on December 8th. And the Holy Father wrote a beautiful apostolic letter, Patris Cors, or a Father's Love. Father, welcome. And why did the Holy Father make this proclamation?
Yeah. Thanks for having me, Brian. I appreciate it. God bless you and all the good work you're doing. And yeah, well, I think that it's because right now there's so much of a crisis in families. There's so much confusion in regard to families. I mean, if you think about it, a lot of cultures, a lot of countries have tried to redefine marriage, even what it is. So there's so much confusion. And talking to or talking to families myself, especially fathers, a lot of men today just feel emasculated. They feel they're being told by the culture you can't fulfill those kind of traditional roles of what it meant to be a father or a husband anymore. Um, so kind of step aside. And I think there's a certain patricide that's been happening in culture, a killing of the father that I think, Pope Francis sees that. And I think he's hearing it from the world and the church. And I think he wanted to respond. And I've read that document now twice, Patris Corde. I'm kind of grateful that it's not very long because some of his stuff is really long. Take you a long time to read it. And then you got to read it again because you're not sure exactly what it says. So this one, it's about 14 pages and it's well done. It's a beautiful document. So I'm very grateful for what he's done.
You know, I read it recently and I was really impressed with one section where he talked about the lives of common, ordinary people were interwoven and how we all need to be more Christ-like and be like St. Joseph. He just went unnoticed, did what he needed to do, was a man of God. It really hit me because I realized, gosh, our unimportant lives really do matter, don't they?
They really do. And I found that part of it pretty inspiring as well, because there are so many people in the world that don't have the notoriety, that don't get the trophies, that don't get the recognition. They're not on social media or, whatever, TV. And yet they're the ones that are kind of the backbone of the whole thing and doing the hard work and the labor. And that certainly was St. Joseph. We don't have one word from him in the New Testament. Talk about a quiet guy in the background. And yet without him, we wouldn't have what we have. I mean, he worked so hard and diligently, courageously, zealously, that it's thanks to him that Jesus and Mary were able to get to the cross to save us. So that's tremendous. And I think the Pope wants to draw that aspect out of so many people behind the scenes who don't get the glory, but at the same time are truly responsible for so much good.
He was just, I was reflecting on the Blessed Mother's sorrows, and I never even realized or thought of it, all as old as I am. Joseph had his sorrows too. He was right there as well,
Right?
getting up, having to flee to Egypt, the loss of Jesus in the temple. I mean, on and on it went.
Yeah. Oh, yes, absolutely. And, I think what's going to happen now is because of this heightened awareness of St. Joseph, a lot of people are going to be doing a lot of research or reading, looking into things. And I think they're going to discover some of these, pious traditions that we've had about the devotion to St. Joseph's sorrows and his joys, because there's both similar to Our Lady. Um, they're going to discover those. And I think we're going to get some renewed interest in some of these things that have been forgotten, like Wednesdays, for example. I love that the Pope emphasized that in his letter too, that Wednesdays were always traditionally the day devoted to St. Joseph. But it kind of, in the last 50, 60 years, that kind of got forgotten. But I think we're going to see a resurgence in many of these things. I'm so happy about that.
Isn't this an anniversary also of when he was declared a patron of the church?
Yeah, yeah, that was done in 1870. So it's really significant that Pope Francis did this on the Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception, announcing the year of St. Joseph, because that's the exact date in 1870 when Blessed Pope Pius IX declared St. Joseph the patron of the Universal Church. And it's funny because I had a few people on social media. They were kind of upset, and they said, "How dare the Pope do this on Our Lady's Day, taking attention away from Our Lady?" And I thought to myself, no, that's not true. I mean, that's not what happened 150 years ago when the Pope did it, and it's not what happened, when Pope Francis did it, because it's husband and wife. They delight in having each other acknowledged and loved, and so I think it's a beautiful thing actually that he did it on that day, because I bet you anything, Our Lady was really, really happy.
Father, as I mentioned, you have written this book, Consecration to Saint Joseph, the Wonders of Our Spiritual Father. What is a consecration? What does it involve, and how did you set up the book?
Yeah, so the word itself, consecration, it basically just means to set something aside for a holy purpose. So, for example, by our baptism, we're consecrated to Jesus Christ, and that's what all consecrations are geared towards is Jesus. So many of us, to help us grow closer to Jesus, we've done a Marian consecration, and those are very powerful. And we can even consecrate things, like we consecrate an altar because it's going to be used at Mass, a chalice, things like that. Well, when we give ourselves to Our Lady to draw us closer to Jesus, we can also ask St. Joseph to do the same, because we're not members of a one parent spiritual family, right? Mary is greater than St. Joseph, and this is certainly not a competition or anything like that. It's a complementarity. It's the beauty. There's a gnat flying in front of my screen. Sorry about that. It's the beauty of the complementary and the beauty of family life. And so we need to go to Jesus through Mary, without a doubt, absolutely. But now, when we have this crisis in families and all this confusion and attacks on fatherhood, it's time to bring in St. Joseph, the head of the Holy Family, and ask him to help us to grow closer to Jesus and Mary. And I think that that's what the Holy Spirit's been doing and building up to this moment today. And so about 4 years ago, I was praying because I had so many people coming up to me expressing their difficulties in their marriage and family life and all of these things. And so I was praying, and I said to myself, it'd be really great if we had some kind of book that was like St. Louis de Montfort's Marian consecration, because he kind of set that in motion with his 33 days. He's the one who's the actual inventor of that method. And I thought, that's brilliant. Why reinvent the wheel? Let me do something like that. So I did the research, took 3 years, and I put the book together. So it's a 33-day program where every day you go through the Litany of St. Joseph, one of the titles. You get to know him and what the saints have said, what popes have said, what apparitions he's appeared in, shrines around the world, things like that. And by the end of it, you really fall in love with him. And you're like, I give myself to you, St. Joseph, be my spiritual father, bring me closer to Jesus and Mary. And so it's going off the charts right now, brother. It's doing so well. It's amazing.
Where can they get this at, Father?
Yeah, so you can find it in most Catholic bookstores, but the best place to get it is consecration to stjoseph.org. We set up a website that explains it. It offers an introduction. And, a lot of people today, they don't get books like this, for example, an actual book. I do. I'm old school. I love a real book in my hands. That's just me, But a lot of people, they like ebooks, a Kindle version or an audiobook. So on that website, you have all those options. And we also have it in Spanish. So that it's consecration to stjoseph.org.
That's ST, not spelled out, right? Consecration to stjoseph.org. Now, you mentioned about the battle in the families and the struggle and the things are just upside down. And I believe it was the the visionary from Fatima, Sister Lucia, said that the final battle will be between God and the devil. Where does Saint Joseph fit into all this?
Yeah, so after the Fatima apparitions in 1917, Sister Lucia became a nun, and later on in 1925, when she was living in Spain, um, she had that insight to this reality, and she said that the final battle between good and evil will be fought over marriage and family. And so, if that's the case, and I believe that it is, I think we're seeing this today. Well, who's the head of the Holy Family? If we want to shore this thing up, if we want to help, you know, things from collapsing, because family is the building block of society. If we want to restore this thing, well, we need to go to the model, and that's the Holy Family. And so we need to go to Saint Joseph specifically because it's that role of men today that's being really attacked. So, for example, studies have been done today that show that 52%, so more than half of all marriages today, end in divorce. Most times, not always, but most times, it's not the woman who wants the divorce, it's the man. Because he's fallen into sin, he's gone off with someone else, or whatever the case may be. Terrible tragedy. So, that being the case, we need to get men back to understanding what it means to be in a commitment, a lifelong commitment that requires sacrifice. You age together, you grow together, and you help each other get to heaven. We've lost that understanding today. And so, if we look at Saint Joseph, he's such a good man. Was such a good father, such a good, faithful husband, always at the service of others, sacrificial, working for others. That's what we need to get back to, and that's where he fits
In his own quiet background way. And it's amazing. I admire you for, I mean, you wrote a book on this, and like you said, scripture says he was a just man. I'm like, Father, really research this. It's a beautiful, well-written book. And you know, hats
Thank
off.
you.
And it's amazing to me how it was almost prophetic that you wrote this and did all this years of prep work, and then Pope Francis declares it the year of St. Joseph. So praise God for that. In your book, you mentioned several saints, and one of them is Blessed, I should say, Saint Andre Bessette. Can you share with people about his story? Because again, I just love these stories.
Yeah, I love him too. He's such a great one. And again, in Joseph-like fashion, he was just a simple man, and you could say a quiet man as well. So he was up in Canada, in Montreal area, and he ended up joining the religious community, his religious community, and he was never ordained a priest. He never became a priest. He was simply the porter, the doorman. He answered the door to his religious community's house there, and yet he had such a holiness that people were drawn to him, and he would always tell them to go to Joseph, and he would give them oil that would burn from candles that were in front of an image of Saint Joseph and a statue of Saint Joseph, and he would give that to them, and he would say, you can use this oil as a not in the sense of holy anointing like when a priest does, but as just a devotional oil to ask Saint Joseph to intercede for you, because many of them were coming to him with health issues and things, and the miracles were amazing. I mean, it's just, if you go to Montreal to the place there, it's amazing all that they have. Well, his great love for Saint Joseph was so amazing that he began construction on a special church dedicated to Saint Joseph. He wasn't able to see it completed himself during his lifetime because he died before it was fully completed. But that project has now become the great basilica of the oratory of Saint Joseph in Montreal. It's the world's largest church dedicated to Saint Joseph. And now that brother, Andre Bessette is Saint Andre Bessette. And many popes have prayed to him, written about him. St. John Paul II actually visited Montreal on one occasion during his papacy. And it's also in Montreal at the oratory where his body is. His body is there. And they have a special place reserved for his heart, which you can actually see. It's pretty amazing. So I've been there myself, I think 3 times so far, and I'm going again next year doing a pilgrimage. So
Are you? When's that?
that's going to be at the end of April, going into May, because we're going to be at the oratory to celebrate Mass on the feast of Saint Joseph the Worker, May 1st. So it's going to be awesome.
You know, when you were talking about Saint Andre, I was thinking of a movie I saw years ago. I'm sure you've seen it, on Saint Faustina and her life. And there was a nun who was just heartbroken because she talks about how she knew Saint Faustina and there was a saint right in front of her and she missed it, you know, because all of us, when they, you know, maybe you've seen it in the order, but among laity, you know, somebody says something good about somebody, and our first thought is, well, you don't know them like I know them, and you miss the beauty of all the people around you and all the good people. And I'm sure they didn't see Brother Andre as a saint either, many of them, and he got beat up a little bit, I think.
He did. He did. He was actually criticized, even by people in his own community and people in the church, and that often happens with the saints, right? And so yeah, even Saint Faustina, if you remember, I think one of her superiors actually sent her off to a psychologist to make sure she wasn't crazy. So.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's amazing. It's all part of the walk, I guess. Now,
Mhm.
in your book, you broke it out into different sections. The 33-day preparation, and then you went through the wonders of our Father, prayers to Saint Joseph, and you have so many wonderful quotes and talk about how to make a consecration. Uh, and again, I just would encourage people to get this book and make a consecration to Saint Joseph. And I sure hope I get to go to the oratory at Montreal. That's on my wish list and bucket list, so to speak. And
Yeah.
what other saints really struck you about in their love for Saint Joseph?
There's a lot. That was something that when I was doing the research, um, I was pretty surprised by, because I think most people don't hear about some of these saints and their tremendous devotion to Saint Joseph. So some of the ones that really stand out are Saint Teresa of Avila. She was a great
Huh.
Carmelite and she helped reform the Carmelites. And she actually challenged people to to attest. She said that for herself, she's never gone to St. Joseph without him helping her, and sometimes not in the way that she necessarily wanted, but giving her something even better. And she challenged people in her autobiography to try that, to test it for themselves. And a really bold, feisty woman, right? And love her. But then after her, there were many others. Some obscure names like St. Lawrence of Brindisi, St. Bernardine of Siena, St. Bernard of Clairvaux. But then you've got the other, like bigger, more maybe known, St. Francis de Sales really loved St. Joseph and gave probably one of the greatest homilies ever on St. Joseph. And then you've got um, Blessed William Joseph Chaminade. Again, not a lot of people have heard of him, but he lived during the French Revolution and was on the run from the authorities who were really hunting down priests. And he was preaching on St. Joseph. And I have a lot of his stuff in the book, just tremendous. St. Peter Julian Imard, he was a great apostle of the Eucharist. He spread Eucharistic adoration everywhere. His stuff on St. Joseph is extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary. And then you've got people, that we do know about, like Saint Therese of Lisieux, right? Everybody knows about the little flower, but not everybody knows that Saint Joseph is responsible for saving her life when she was an infant, because she was dying, and her mother, now her saintly mother, prayed to Saint Joseph, and Therese's life, she lived through that traumatic experience. And not a lot of people know that when Therese was in the womb of her mother, her mom and her dad were going to name the child Joseph, because they thought the child in the womb was a boy. So back then they didn't have what we have today to be able to tell and things. And so when she was born, they realized, oh, we have a girl here. So that's not going to work. So they ended up naming her Therese.
Hmm.
So there's a connection there that's pretty fascinating. And then you get a lot of other ones like Venerable Fulton Sheen had a great love for Saint Joseph. Saint Faustina did as well. In her diary, she talks about him helping her with her mission to spread divine mercy. And then, of course, Saint John Paul II. What a great love that he had. He for Saint Joseph. He wrote an official document, Redemptoris Custos. It's called Guardian of the Redeemer. A beautiful document on Saint Joseph. So there's been a lot, and I'm just touching the surface. There's a lot of saints.
Was Maximilian Kolbe his deep love for the Blessed Mother? He had a love as well, didn't he?
He did. He absolutely did. And when you think about it, it's only right and proper because, I mean, in my book, I talk about, that kind of chivalry. Saint Maximilian Kolbe was all about knights, and chivalry and all that. Well, Saint Joseph, you could say, was the first knight of the Immaculata. He's the one who really was the first one to be totally consecrated to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And so, yeah, he loved Saint Joseph.
While you were talking, I was thinking of Saint Joseph and how he had to, he accepted Mary as his wife. And here he is in those days, the stigma of having a woman pregnant before marriage. And it was kind of a mess he found himself in. And he understood and accepted the will of God and did so bravely and heroically. And
yeah, well, that's it. I mean, his great in his manhood is that he draws out the dignity of others. And that isn't that what a good father and a husband does. And here's something that I learned, and when I learned this, I was like, this is amazing. The world needs to know this. His name, the name Joseph, etymologically, it means increase. That's what Joseph means. It means increase. So I refer to him now as the increaser. Yeah. Saint Joseph is the increaser. He will increase Jesus in your life. He will increase Mary in your life. He will increase virtue in your life. He will increase the works of mercy in your life. That's what a good father does. And that's certainly what he does.
And that's important right there, just for being a father myself. It's like, yeah, we got to bring out the good, let our children know how much we love them and they're beautiful. And even when we sometimes are so upset with them, that we don't think that way. But yeah, the father's job is to increase and even multiply in love of God. And
that's right. That's right. Yep. And that's why a reason why I think we need him today to help us to get back to some of the basics, some of the fundamentals, because we've really gotten off the rails with a lot of these things today, with all the confusion, the gender ideology, for example, just so many political movements that are resurfacing today, which are really not good for the common good and for humanity. Saint Joseph in the past has proven to help us overcome these things. The Feast of Saint Joseph the Worker, for example, when it was declared in the 1950s, the intention for that the Pope had was to help us go against the communist understanding of work, that we weren't just meant to be robots, and work without the ability to enjoy life and the things of life. And so he established that to help overcome that threat. And pretty much it worked. But today we're seeing a lot of these things resurfacing with different names attached to it, whatever you want to call it. And so it's time to go to Joseph again, because he's going to help us get out of this, and he's going to increase our true awareness of what's good and what's false. That's his role.
And really to help people like myself, a father, become more of a man of God and trust in the Lord and do his will and put our wives right there in the triangle with God, dad and mom,
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I love to tell people, I've been preaching on this for a while now. I often hear from men, especially because I speak at a lot of men's conferences, and they'll say, well, Father, I let my wife do all the religious stuff in the house because she's just better at it. And I say, well, hold on a minute. you're probably right that she probably is better at it. I'm not denying that. Women tend to be just better at these things. Um, but you have an important role to play. Think of the Holy Family. There you have Jesus, who is God, and you have Our Lady, the Immaculata. She's not God, but she's the perfect creature. She's perfect. But whose role was it to lead the family in prayer and religious observance? It was Joseph's. Of those three members, he was the least one worthy to do it. But Jesus let him do it, and Our Lady let him do it because that was his role as the father, to be the one to do it. So imagine today if we had more fathers who were the ones who were waking the family up on Sundays and taking the family to church. Imagine if we had more fathers who were the ones leading the prayers in the family, leading grace before meals, and all of those kind of things. Wow. I think we could really make a difference if we get back to some of these things. And it's not to say, again, that your wife doesn't do it better than you do. She probably does, right? I mean, the majority of the people at the foot of the cross were not men, they were women. Us men were,
Yeah,
we
we're
have our,
nowhere to be found.
right. So, but we do also have our role to play. And it's an important role. And I think we need to bring that importance of fatherhood back into society, into families, and even in the church, right? Because you call me father, even though with this beard, everybody says, "Father, where's your Roman collar?" It's there. It's just my beard covering it up. But we need priests also to be renewed in their vocations and to be of service, like Saint Joseph was to his family. Because for us priests, we're married to the church, so to speak, and she's not at our disposal just to do with her what we would like. No, we have to serve her. We have to sacrifice. We have to lay down our life for her. And we need renewal in the priesthood today as well. So I think Saint Joseph, he's our go-to guy today for pretty much everything.
And it really is amazing that we've got this year of St. Joseph. Now, are there any plenary indulgences or things? Did the Holy Father mention anything with that?
He sure did. So the best thing to do, because there's so much associated with this, and there's many ways that you can get these plenary indulgences, and you can even get them on a daily basis. This is extraordinary. By doing works of mercy, with that intention of honoring St. Joseph. So we've been given a great gift right now. So if you just go to a Google search and punch in Year of St. Joseph indulgences, you'll get the official list from the Vatican that lists all the different ways. And we're spoiled right now with mercy and grace. Let's take advantage of it.
The faith is so rich, and like you said, we're so blessed, and the world is upside down. Years ago, I remember as a kid, well before your time, but the movie Poseidon Adventure, and the boat had turned upside down, and it was actually a doctor, I remember, who thought they were all going the right way. He was leading all the people on the ship, but they were going down to their destruction. It was just a handful of people who realized the ship was upside down and they were going opposite the world, so to speak, and
Yeah,
to their safety and rescue. And it's really the state of the world right now. And
yeah,
we
that's
need,
right.
we need Saint Joseph. We need the saints. We need the guidance. We need Jesus, Mary, and Joseph.
We sure do. And I think, I've been telling people, because I've been praying about this for a while, asking, the Holy Trinity and Our Lady and Saint Joseph to touch the Pope's heart to declare a year of Saint Joseph. I even wrote a letter to the Pope last year, and I begged him to do this. And I know he got it because we have pictures of him reading the letter with the bishop who gave it to him. So for me, this is something extraordinary for the church, because we've never, in 2,000 years of Christianity, we've never had a year of Saint Joseph. Never.
Hmm.
And so we really, even though these times are difficult, and they are, right? I mean, 2020, whew, what a year, wow. So we've been through a lot, and a lot of people, unfortunately, have been affected by, losing their job or taking a reduction or being on furlough, and a lot of uncertainties, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. And that's real, right? People are living that right now. But God is giving us extraordinary graces to go to the man who's the patron saint of workers, to go to this good and loving Father, and to ask him to help to give us peace in these difficult times. And the things that I'm hearing from people who were able to do the consecration so far, that it really has given him hope, given him peace, and helped them to put things back into perspective, so that they're not in a full out panic, thinking that the end of the world is coming, but that they're, putting God back at the center of their life, because it's almost like the whole world took a time out, from everything, pretty much, from sports, from entertainment, from leisure, from pretty much everything. We're stuck in our homes, many of us, for so long. But I think it's like, the world and many leaders right now are talking about some great reset, right? And what they're talking about is pretty scary, a lot of these people. Well, God has a desire to do a great reset, a holy one. And that's to get us back to the basics, to get us back to good lives of virtue, turning away from so many sinful things that we become accustomed to, entertaining ourselves with filth and all this pornography that's, saturated the planet. That's a real plague, infecting souls. God's reset for us is to get back to the basics, the 101 stuff, the fundamentals, return to Him, and return to family. And if we do that, oh boy, we're going to see tremendous things happen for good.
It's so funny. We just got to get back to like the reading, writing, arithmetic. And I read recently, as a physician, I was looking up the consequences of the epidemic, the pandemic, and things. And suicide's at an all-time high, drug addiction, overdoses an all-time high, alcohol abuse all-time. I mean, people are looking for answers in all the wrong places. Our human brokenness, and here we go. Go back to God and the saints, and it's all in front of us. And
That's exactly right. And you're right. I've heard the same thing. And as a priest, I've been dealing with some of it. People telling me that they've lost loved ones as a result of suicide during this difficult time. Divorce rates as well. People separating because they've had to live together now indoors with each other, and they just, things fell apart, and they didn't have that solid foundation of sacrifice. And so a lot of tragedies today. And you think about it too, think about all the kids that are not able to play and just be kids, and go to school and be normal. That's not good. That the long-term effects of that cannot be good for youth development, in their social interaction and all of that. That's not good. So yeah, we've got to get back to the basics.
get back to St. Joseph. Well, Father, again, congratulations on your wonderful book, Consecration to St. Joseph, The Wonders of Our Spiritual Father. And people can get it at Consecration St. Joseph, St. Joseph, all one word.org. And Father, keep up the great work as a tremendous priest and guiding people back to our Lord. And thank you for joining us today on Hope, Healing, and Mercy. People can see this series at drbrianthatcher.com. And we've got some other great shows coming up in the future. So stay tuned, people. Thank you again, Father, and God bless.
God bless you too.
Don't hang up.